It has been quite the turnaround for Marcell Ozuna. Now we're at about the year mark, a little bit more than that for Marcell Ozuna. We're going to take a look back at just how far he has come offensively for the Atlanta Braves in the past year. We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jacob Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast there as well at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. Always enjoy interacting with you there. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. If you're new, hit that thumbs up button so other people can find us here at Locked On Braves. Make sure that you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, whatever it may be. That does help support the show a ton. And thank you for all your support here at Locked On Braves. I couldn't do this without you. And thank you for all those letting me know that you are an everydayer and how much you enjoy the show. That means the world to me. Zach Goins and Liam Scorgi, thank you for letting me know on the last podcast that you're an everydayer. And thank you so much for that. On today's podcast, we'll recap Wednesday's 5-0 win over the Red Sox. Chris Sale and his somewhat revenge game against his old team is dominant. But we're going to focus a lot on Marcell Ozuna and just the turnaround that he has had over his last now 160 games, where he has been one of the best hitters in all of baseball. We'll discuss that a lot on today's episode. Before we do, though, got to remind you again about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends, because who doesn't want to do that? So download Monopoly Go, now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Chris Sale has certainly been in his game mode for a while now. He has been on his game rather, in another just brilliant performance on Wednesday night. A 5-0 win for the Atlanta Braves. They get a 2-game sweep over the Red Sox, and much needed in the sense that it was a rough road trip for the Atlanta Braves. You come back home, you get to rest a little bit at home before you go back out on the road, but it's just 2 games, and you split those 2 games, and you still got that bad taste in your mouth of just not playing good baseball on the road trip. Coming back home, you split a 2-game set, so you feel like you really haven't done much there. But to win both of these games feels pretty big for where the Braves, again, were coming off that tough West Coast trip. So certainly love that. Obviously, you love winning games. However, they come and whenever they come. But again, after just a disastrous trip on the West Coast and a disastrous series against the Dodgers, to then come home, be able to win 2 before you head back out on the road briefly to face a division rival, I thought those were 2 really good wins for the Braves. Chris Sale continues his dominance, 6 innings, 6 hits, 1 walk, no earned runs, and 10 strikeouts on 103 pitches against his former team on Wednesday night. He just continues to be a top-of-the-rotation pitcher. I mean, he is what he is at this point. I said when the move was made, I really didn't have any concerns about the stuff. I felt like he still had the talent to be a top-of-the-rotation pitcher. The only question, and this question still remains and will until it just doesn't happen, hopefully, can he stay healthy? And to this point, he looks about as healthy as he can be. Again, throwing over 100 pitches in this one. Now, a double-digit strikeouts, first time he's done that this year. First time he's done it with the Braves. He had 3 double-digit strikeout performances last year. He didn't have any from 2020 to 2022. Obviously didn't play a lot in that time and was injured over that stretch. But just in case you forgot how dominant of a strikeout pitcher Chris Sale was in his prime, in 2019, he had 14 double-digit strikeout games, including a 17 strikeout performance. I don't think we're going to see that from Chris Sale too much this year, but wouldn't be surprised we see a few more double-digit strikeout performances, especially if hitters continue to whiff at the slider at the rate that they did on Wednesday night. Overall, he had 20 whiffs. That's a 41% whiff rate. 13 of those whiffs coming on 18 swings against his slider. Red Sox hitters just could not touch it. He had a called strike plus whiff percentage of 39%. Anything over 30 is considered really, really good, and he was nearly at 40. Again, it's what we've seen, and it is still a short sample size. We're still at that point of the year where you have to reference everything with that. It is still early in a small sample, but he looks like top of the rotation arm. right now. And you lose Spencer Strider, and you're not going to really replace that. But now you feel a little bit more comfortable with Max Fried and the way he has pitched lately and looking dominant. And now you got Chris Sale beside him at the top of the rotation. Suddenly things looking really good once again at the top of the Braves starting rotation. I want to talk about my three biggest moments from the game on Wednesday. And really, it comes down to one moment, and it came in the first inning of the game. And it's on the play that Austin Riley hit a ball, seemingly innocent ball to shortstop. And by the way, if you don't know Ceddanne Rafaela and you weren't aware of his game, the dude is an incredible defensive player. The fact he was able to charge that ball, throw on the run to second, and give Grissom any type of chance to even make it close at first base, it was a pretty incredible play by Rafaela. So as somebody who loves defense, I just wanted to point that out. He was called out initially at first base, was Riley, inning double play there. Pretty gutsy call by the Braves to review that in the first place. If you lose that challenge, you're pretty much done with challenges until the 8th inning when you can initiate a crew chief review. I feel like there have been other plays here recently that probably should have been reviewed that the Braves didn't. But here they take a shot in the first inning and what, seemingly was an innocent, force out. So again, it was the timing was a little odd for when you would review that with how close that it was. I mean, there was an angle, obviously, that shows his foot hitting the bag just about an inch before that ball hits the back of the glove. So, I mean, it was pretty clear that he was safe, but we've seen the replay center, mess up calls like that in the past, particularly against the Braves. But as it is, it gets overturned. Olsen gets a little dribbler to third for a hit, and he deserves about 10 more of those with how much he's been robbed over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And then Ozuna comes up, hits a 3-run shot. That pitch was supposed to be in, which I'm not sure why you would throw a fastball into Ozuna in the first place. Instead, it's up and away, and Ozuna is able to cover that as well and send it into the chop house. Just really impressive swing from him. And then Arcia comes up, gets an 0-2 pitch, a pitch down and away that he sends into the chop house, which is really encouraging for Arcia because that's a pitch that he has been pulling to a shortstop for the last several weeks. So hopefully that's a good sign of him maybe about to break back out. And with the way the Braves pitched in this one, and honestly with the way the Braves have been pitching for weeks now, the game was essentially over in the first inning. You put up a 4 spot in the first inning. Chris Sale, as dominant as he has been, and again, just his pitching staff overall, and you pretty much just wrap things up right there. And it all comes down to an overturned call. So, there's a point for replay. It certainly has its faults, but that is a situation where it completely changed the game. And it was the right call after the overturn, obviously, was the right call. And it changed everything about that game. But that was the big moment in it. I'll talk about some others real quick. Sale striking out Vaughn Grissom in the top of the first inning. Just kind of a cool moment. Those two were traded for each other. It was a pretty big spot in the first inning. Even before Vaughn Grissom came up, you had a double and a walk that put 2 on with 1 out for Rafael Devers. And Sale got him to ground out to shortstop. That moved runners up to second and third for Vaughn Grissom. And again, just the 2 guys traded for. So pretty cool moment and a big spot early in this game. And Chris Sale was able to strike him out with a slider that dropped below the zone. Then the Braves put up those 4 runs. And like I said, after that, it was pretty much over. The only other time that the Red Sox really threatened came in the 5th inning, and Sale was able to escape that jam as well. Red Sox had some base runners throughout, but in the 5th inning, they put their number 9 and leadoff hitter on to begin things. So it was a chance for them to maybe mount a rally and get back in it. Sale left a changeup up over the middle of the plate to Connor Wong, who hit it 100.3 miles per hour, but right to Austin Riley, who started a potential double play. Wong is pretty fast for a catcher, but Ozzy bobbled the ball on the transfer, wasn't able to get a good throw over there to first base. I hate to keep harping on Ozzy's defense, but it just keeps coming up. He is definitely a negative there defensively and has been for a while, but you don't get the double play. But then Chris Sale just goes after Tyler O'Neill. He dotted him with a 3-2 slider that froze him on the inner half, and then he got Devers to chase the slider off the plate down and away to escape the jam there. So just great work by Chris Sale. Great work by Braves pitchers in general. Red Sox, again, had a lot of base runners in this 2-game series, but Braves pitchers made some big pitches when they needed to, and a lot of them seemed to come against the top of the Red Sox lineup to get out of some of these jams. So those are my 3 biggest moments from this game. Chris Sale, obviously dominant, and then that first inning overturned call leading to 4 runs for the Braves, pretty much ending the game before it even got started. on Wednesday night. Next, I want to turn our attention to Marcell Ozuna and the turnaround that he's had. I want to go back and tell the whole story and where Marcell Ozuna has come from to where he is now, which is one of the best hitters in all of baseball. We'll discuss that here next. If you haven't got your Mother's Day present yet, don't worry, because DoorDash has you covered. Surprise mom with flowers, gadgets, and self-care essentials all in one place, delivered right to her door. You don't have to go out and get anything. You're busy this weekend. I get it, but it is your mother. Make sure you do something nice for her. And you can do that with DoorDash. Does your mom have a sweet tooth? Maybe she's a tech enthusiast. My mom doesn't know how to turn on the computer, so that is not for her. But she does love books and she loves flowers. So I can get her a bouquet and I can get her a gift card to her favorite bookstore. And I can do that all in DoorDash and have it delivered right to her door. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place. Get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with our code LOCKEDONMLB. Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB at checkout on DoorDash. When you spend $15 or more, you can get up to $15 off, 50% off your next order of $15 or more using our code LOCKEDONMLB with DoorDash. Get DoorDash today. Terms do apply. Been telling you about Monopoly Go for a while now, and you've been telling me about Monopoly Go. I get so many comments in the YouTube comments telling me how much they love Monopoly Go, that they play it pretty much every day, just like they listen to this podcast every day. And I promise you, you will enjoy it as well. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. So clearly, a lot of people out there are enjoying the classic mobile game Monopoly Go, which is based off the classic Monopoly game, where you can explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. Charge rent on iconic properties, just like in the classic game, and you can charge your friends rent on those iconic properties, or go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part is watching the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. You can do all that with Monopoly Go. Again, fun game. Continue to let me know down in the comment section if you enjoy this game. Love hearing that from you. Go get yourself on the charts today. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play. You like to listen to sports all day on your TV. Who doesn't? But you're watching ESPN, Fox Sports, and it's just constant yelling, nonsense. People that just love to hear themselves yell about something they don't know what they're talking about. Make the switch today to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We got another off day on Thursday, so Thursday night we'll have another live mailbag episode. I'll send out a tweet from LockedOn_Braves on Twitter asking for those questions. So get ready to submit those there to be answered on Thursday's live show. And also get ready to join me. It'll start at 9 p.m. Central, 10 Eastern, if you would like to join me Thursday night for a live mailbag episode. But let's talk about Marcell Ozuna, because it's a story that's not talked about enough nationally. And I to a degree understand why. Look, I've been as hard on Ozuna for the off the field stuff as anyone. And I can understand why Major League Baseball doesn't really want to bring that into their comment section, because anytime Marcell Ozuna is tweeted about, talked about, that's all you get in the comment section is his mistakes in the past. And I've covered that. I'm not going to cover that here. What I do want to talk about, though, is just an incredible turnaround by a player and hopefully, I think, a person as well. But let's go back a little bit, because it is pretty crazy how he has evolved over the year. Ozuna's career starts with the Marlins at 22 years old in 2013. His first 3 years, he's just kind of okay. He made his first All-Star game in 2016. He had an OPS plus of 110 that year. So even then, just kind of okay. He put together his best full season in 2017 when he was also an All-Star, Silver Slugger. He got MVP votes, and he won a Gold Glove. And I know that's going to sound crazy to Braves fans right now, but obviously much younger then, moved around a lot better, and he actually won a Gold Glove in 2017. He hit 37 home runs that year with a 312 average and a 924 OPS. Of course, after that year, the Marlins trade him because that's what the Marlins do. They send him to St. Louis for Sandy Alcantara, Daniel Castano, Zach Gallen, and Magnier Sierra. That's a pretty good haul for the Marlins. They then flipped Gallen for Jazz Chisholm. So Marlins made out pretty well in that deal, but just kind of crazy that after a great season, an MVP type season, of course the Marlins trade him. And look, he was just okay in St. Louis, but nothing great. Certainly nothing like what we saw in 2017, what seemed like an outlier early in his career. I mentioned in St. Louis, he was just okay, barely over average in terms of OPS plus. The defense started to decline. There's the hilarious video of him climbing the fence for no reason for a ball that dropped on the warning track. Defense was definitely starting to take a dive at that point. And then after 2019, he was looking for an opportunity somewhere again after a couple of so-so years in St. Louis. And he just saw what Josh Donaldson did in resurrecting his career with the Atlanta Braves. And so Ozuna was looking to do the same thing in 2020. He signed a one-year, $18 million deal with the Braves. And he was incredible. He led National League hitters with 18 home runs and 56 RBI that year in a short 60-game season. He slashed 338, 431, 636. That's a 1067 OPS. He finished sixth in MVP voting. Obviously, Freddie Freeman won it that year. But despite the big year, not many teams were willing to take a chance on a guy who was pretty much becoming a full-time DH, somebody who, in his track record, he really had one all-star season, even though I know he's made two all-stars. And outside of that, it was really just kind of a slightly above average hitter, around a 110 OPS plus, with 100 being average. So just a slightly above average hitter, somebody that could hit 25, 30 home runs a season. And nobody was really buying into the short sample 2020 year. And even the Braves weren't eager to sign him. I talk about this all the time. I don't think Alex Anthopoulos really wanted to bring Ozuna back. He waited until February the 5th to finally settle on Marcell Ozuna. He explored every possible option out there before finally deciding to bring Marcell Ozuna back. And he did so at 4 years, $65 million. And I can remember writing at the time, because I don't think I was podcasting then. I think I was still just writing for Tomahawk Take at the time, that I didn't love the deal. I thought it was a mistake because I wasn't buying the 2020 sample size, the small sample size in 2020. And I was looking at the track record of a guy who, again, is pretty much DH only, shouldn't be playing in the outfield. The Braves had to do that some early on in his second tenure, even in 2020. Braves had to do that some. And I felt like it was a big overpay for Marcell Ozuna, and you were buying off of a breakout 60-game sample. I was looking like I was dead on with that after the first couple of years in this deal. And you look at the start of 2021 through April of 2023, and this is what Ozuna's stats look like. And I apologize, you're not going to be able to see this on the screen, so bear with me as I throw these numbers at you. But over that time, he played 190 games, 717 at-bats. This is a big sample size. He slashed 211, 271, 381, a 652 OPS, a 78 WRC plus, a 7.4% walk rate, 23.8% strikeout rate, 31 home runs over 190 games, 32% hard hit rate. A 237 BABIP would tell you that maybe he was a little bit unlucky during that span, but also just not making great contact. He was one of the worst players in baseball. Like, I don't think that's crazy to say. It's not crazy to say because you can look at the numbers and it'll tell you not very good. A 652 OPS and a 78 WRC plus. That is over a 190 game sample over parts of 3 seasons. It's just, he was not good. He was not good at all. And this was looking like a terrible contract. And then you throw in the fact that in May of 2021, he broke his hand. During that time, he was arrested for assault on his wife. He was put on administrative leave by Major League Baseball. He was eventually suspended 20 games retroactively by Major League Baseball after that season. Comes back in 2022. Braves won a World Series and all of that. Comes back in 2022, and in August, after a really tough season, he was arrested for or charged with driving under the influence. He's also apparently crossing lanes, driving way over the speed limit. Police officers saying he had to speed up to 90 miles per hour just to catch up to him in a road that had a speed limit of 30 miles per hour. This is not good stuff that is happening for Marcell Ozuna during this stretch where he is struggling on the field, struggling off the field, everything going wrong for Marcell Ozuna during this time. There's also rumors that the Braves are trying everything to trade Marcell Ozuna, even flirting with the idea of swapping bad contracts with Madison Bumgarner or even Patrick Corbin, one of the worst contracts in all of baseball. And the Braves are flirting with that idea because they're just looking for any chance to get rid of Marcell Ozuna and not have to eat all of the money that they still owed him. I had a podcast in January of 2022 titled Marcell Ozuna for Madison Bumgarner trade that I recorded. And in that podcast, I wasn't necessarily saying that I would do it, but I was thinking about it. And apparently the Braves were too. That's how bad things had gotten for Marcell Ozuna. Again, not just on the field, but off the field. Everything was a mess for Marcell Ozuna. And so now we fast forward to May 1st of 2023, where the turnaround on the field definitely started to happen. Trade options are no longer on the table at this point. Nobody is taking Marcell Ozuna, both for the off-the-field issues that he's had and his terrible play on the field. After a disastrous April in 2023, in which he hit 091 in 55 at-bats, many were wondering, I was talking about it here on the podcast, many people were writing about it, how long until the Braves just cut Marcell Ozuna and eat the remaining money on his contract? I would love to know how close the front office was to pulling the trigger on cutting Marcell Ozuna. I would love to know the discussions had that said, hey, okay, if he doesn't get it together by the middle of May or end of June, like what was that timeline? Because you got to figure those discussions were happening. He was hurting the team. On the field, especially, he was hurting the team. There were no reports of anything in the clubhouse where he was affecting the team. In fact, we'll talk about it's been the opposite of that afterwards. But you got to imagine that those discussions were happening. Now, since May 1st, here are Marcell Ozuna's numbers. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'll throw some of these up on the screen. In his last 160 games played, going back to May 1st of last year, Marcell Ozuna has hit 50 home runs. He has a 301 average, a 984 OPS, and this is in almost 600 at-bats now. So we're looking at a big sample size, a 160 WRC plus, a 9.8% walk rate. So that's gone up over 2% than where it was over his rough stretch. 21.8% strikeout rate. So that's been reduced 2 points from where it was during his rough stretch. Again, the 50 home runs over that time, just truly incredible. 40.9% hard hit rate. So nearly a 41% hard hit rate over that stretch, where as before it was 32%. So they raised that by almost 10%. 322 batting average on balls in play. It's almost 100 points higher than where it was while he was in that tough stretch. But again, that's because he's making better contact. He did get 19 MVP votes in 2023. He should have won Silver Slugger at DH, but again, I get it to a degree. Look, he's made mistakes. There has to be some sort of punishments for those mistakes, but Major League Baseball not giving him an award that he earned kind of feels bad. I talked about the changes for him, over the year, what I've seen, just more complete offensive player. Again, having good at bats, taking his walks, being able to just shoot the ball the other way. Whereas before it was just, can I pull one out? Can I hit a home run? And he was going to be a 230, 240 hitter with 25 to 30 home runs. And that's what he was going to be. But now he's a more complete player where he's able to take his walks, still hitting those home runs, still pulling the ball a lot. But that's what you want for a guy with his power, but just a more well-rounded offensive player. And I think maybe what's most encouraging, it makes me feel that this is real, is the consistency. After he got going last May, he's only hit under 280 in just one of the last 6 full months that he's played. He dipped down to a 209, 250, 453 slash line last July, and you maybe thought the hot streak's over. Here's back to old Ozuna. And then he bounced back in August and slashed 358, 433, 698 with 9 home runs, and has just been killing the ball consistently since the beginning of last May. Perhaps the move to DH has helped. Whatever the case may be, he's the Braves' best hitter right now. That's not even a question. and he's been one of the best hitters in all of baseball over the last 160 games. And whatever his issues have been off the field, his teammates have said nothing but good things about him in the clubhouse, including Chris Sale after last night's game. There's a quote that I got from David O'Brien of The Athletic. Chris Sale on Ozuna. He's setting records, and who he is as a teammate. He's got a magnetic field around him. You just want to be around him. He's a fun guy to play with. He keeps the energy up in the clubhouse, dugout, on the bus, the plane, no matter where you're at. And then Brian Snitker followed up on that and said Marcell provides that energy as soon as he walks in the clubhouse every day. Teammates are into him, cheering him on when he does well, and it kind of just gives the club, obviously, a big boost. These guys don't have to say anything. Obviously, Brian Snitker was prompted to say something about it after Chris Sale mentioned it, but Chris Sale didn't have to say anything about him as a teammate, and yet he went out of his way to do that. Look, I, again, have been as hard on Ozuna as anybody in the past, but as far as we know, and I don't know the guy personally, you don't either, but from the people who do, who are in the clubhouse with him every day, they all just have nothing but good things to say about Marcell Ozuna as a person. And that is certainly great to hear. And obviously for Braves fans and for the Braves in general, what he has done on the field and the turnaround he has had is just nothing short of remarkable. So I wanted to highlight that, go back through it. Hopefully you enjoyed kind of that journey and the road that he's been on, because it has been, I think, one of the better stories in baseball for what he has done, from a guy that was on the verge, I think, of just being completely cut and let go, to now, over this last 160 games, being one of the best hitters in all of baseball. All right, next we'll turn our attention to the New York Mets. Got a series coming up there. Also got a little bit of trade news to discuss. We'll do all of that here next. Baseball season is in full swing. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePicks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBI, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less. Add them to your PrizePicks entry today. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. All you got to do, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And then you can do what I'm doing right now. Open up your PrizePicks app and see what they have out there for you today. See Aaron Judge out there hitting fantasy score of 8. You pick more or less. You think he's going to go over that. You want to look at pitcher strikeouts. Obviously, the Braves aren't playing today, but Hunter Green for the Reds is pitching. They have him for 6.5 strikeouts. All you do, pick more or less on that. It is that easy. Just pick 2 to 6 players and decide if you think they'll go more or less on certain stats like strikeouts, hits, home runs, and all of that on the PrizePicks app. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. All right, Barry, quickly here as we're running up against the end of the podcast, I did want to preview that Mets series, because on Thursday night's podcast, I want to keep it all about the questions. It's Charlie Morton versus Jose Quintana, Max Fried versus Luis Severino. I'm sorry, I got to change that up with the Mets rotation getting pushed back. It's going to be Christian Scott on Saturday and Luis Severino on Sunday. So those pitching matchups got changed around a little bit since I first wrote these notes. It'll be Morton versus Quintana, and then Fried versus Scott, and Elder versus Severino. That gives 2 extra days of rest for Elder, an extra day of rest for Max Fried. So that's always good. Anytime you can give these guys extra rest. I want to talk a little bit about the Mets. Their offense since April 8th, which is that series they had in Atlanta where they took it to the Braves in that one, honestly. Their offense since then, 256, 325, 404, 729 OPS, 114 WRC plus. That's much better than their season slash line of 241, 315, 369, 691. So they've been much better since that stretch. Their bullpen has been really good all year long. Obviously, getting Edwin Diaz back helps, but Jorge Lopez, Jake Diekman, Adam Ottavino, and Reed Garrett form a strong group of relievers. So Braves have done a lot of work late in games so far this year. Don't really want that to have to be the case against the Mets. Garrett in particular has having a bit of a breakout year for the Mets in the bullpen. He's allowed just 1 earned run in 19 innings with 32 strikeouts. So he is one to watch. And then on the offensive side of things, Brandon Nimmo might be a problem. He was a problem in that series against the Braves in Atlanta. He's batting just 229 on the year, but he has a 301 expected batting average. And it seems like all of that is being made up for right now. His last 7 games, he's slashing 320, 452, 680. He has a 14.1% barrel rate. That is elite. A 49.5% hard hit rate, 92.6 mile per hour average exit velocity. He has a 377 on base. Despite that low average, he's still getting on base a ton, batting leadoff there for the Mets. He has an expected slug of 562, which is almost 150 points higher than its actual slug of 412. So he's been extremely unlucky. But again, that seems to be changing here lately. So that is something to watch for in this series. And then Francisco Lindor heating up as well. In his last 13 games, he has a 915 OPS over that stretch. Do got a little bit of a trade to mention. The Braves are moving Luis Guillorme to the Angels. Have not heard the return, or here it goes. The Braves are getting cash or a player to be named later. So we'll see what happens there. Guillorme always kind of felt redundant with David Fletcher, who you already had, and is pretty much the same player from the right side. Can play good defense at multiple spots on the infield. Can put the ball in play. I imagine he's going to be the one that's called up here. But the Braves moving Guillorme to the Angels for cash or a player to be named later. A little bit of a trade there on Thursday morning. That will do it for this episode, though. I want to remind you again that Locked On's launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. And tonight, don't forget, live mailbag podcast at 9 Central, 10 Eastern. So be ready to join that. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to Locked On Braves wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.